it's time for a read aloud. I haven't done it yet, so we gotta get caught up. Here we go. It's been a while. You guys probably forgot what happened. But what I found is with read alouds is you often say, I have no idea where we were, but once I get a paragraph in, you'll remember. So here we go. They used him as bait, Seth yelled. The baby looked back at the wolves, and they turned back towards Seth and Kendra, bawling with renewed vigor. Tears streaming, tiny hands slapping the window panes. The wolves charged. The toddler wailed. In her cage, Goldilocks clucked wildly. Seth threw open the window. No, Kendra shouted, although she reflexively wanted to do the same thing. The instant the window opened, wind gushed into the room as if the air itself had been waiting to pounce. The baby dove into the room, transforming grotesquely as it landed on the floor into a deaf somersault. The child was replaced by a leering goblin with yellow slits for eyes and a puckered nose, and a face like a dried cantaloupe. Bald and scabrous on the top, the head was fringed by long, web-like hair. The sinuous arms were gangly and the hands long and leathery, tipped with hooked claws, ribbed collarbones, and pelvis jutting hideously. Spidery networks of veins bulged against the maroon flesh. With supernatural haste, the wolves also sailed through the window before Seth could move close to it. Kendra shoved past Seth and jerked the window shut in time to impede the entrance of a coldly beautiful woman swathed in writhing black garments. The apparition's dark hair undulated like vapor in a breeze. Her pallid face was slightly translucent. Gazing into those empty, staring eyes froze Kendra where she stood. Babbling whispers filled her mind. Her mouth felt dry. She could not swallow. Seth yanked the curtain shut and tugged Kendra toward the bed. Whatever trance had momentarily organized her dissolved. Disoriented, she ran alongside Seth to the bed, sensing something in pursuit. When they leapt onto the mattress, a brilliant light flared behind them, accompanied by a crisp stutter like firecrackers. Kendra twisted to get a look. The maroon goblin stood near the bed, coddling its bony shoulder. The scowling creature stood as tall as Dale. Hesitantly, it reached a knobby hand toward her, and another bright flash sent it staggering away. The circle of salt. At first, she had not grasped why Seth was dragging her to the bed. At least one of them was thinking. Glancing down, Kendra saw that the 2-inch dune of salt surrounding the bed indeed marked the line the goblin could not cross. A 12-foot centipede with 3 sets of wings and 3 pairs of taloned feet corkscrewed around the room in a complex aerial display. A brutish monster with a pronounced underbite and plates down its spine hurled a wardrobe across the room. The wolves had shed their disguises as well. The maroon goblin cavorted around the room in feral tantrum, tearing down bookshelves, upsetting toy chests, and snapping the horn off the rocking horse. It picked up Goldilocks' cage and flung it against the wall. The slender bars crumpled and the door sprang open. The terrified chicken took to ungainly flight in a flurry of golden feathers. Goldilocks was coming toward the bed. The winged centipede struck at the flustered hen but missed. The maroon demon made an acrobatic leap and caught the chicken by both legs. Goldilocks clucked and squirmed in mortal panic. Seth jumped off the bed. Crouching, he scooped up 2 handfuls of the circle of salt and charged the wiry goblin. Now holding the chicken in one hand and the sneering goblin rushed to meet him. An instant before the outstretched hand of the demon reached him, Seth flung a handful of salt. Releasing Goldilocks, the demon reeled back, scorched by a blinding blaze. The chicken made straight for the bed, and Seth tossed his other handful of salt in a wide arc to cover their retreat, scalding the flying centipede in the process. The bulky creature with the underbite tried to beat Seth to the bed, arriving too late and receiving a violent shock as it collided with the invisible salt barrier. Back on the bed, Seth clung to Goldilocks, arms quivering convulsively. Ooh, there's a picture. The maroon demon growled. His face and chest were charred from the salt. The tendrils of smoke curled up from the burns. Turning, the demon pulled a book from the shelf and tore it in half. The door flew open and Dale leveled a shotgun at the monster with the underbite. "You kids stay put no matter what," he called. All 3 monsters converged on the doorway. Dale retreated down the stairs, guns silent. The winged centipede spiraled out the door above the other scrambling creatures. They heard a shotgun blast from down in the hall. "Shut the door and stay put," Dale hollered. Kendra ran and slammed the door and then sprinted back to her bed. Seth held Goldilocks, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he whimpered. "It'll be okay." From downstairs came repeated gunshots, growls, roars, shrieks, glass shattering, wood splintering. Outside, the cacophonous uproar resumed louder than ever. Pagan drums, ethereal choirs, tribal chanting, wailing lamentations, guttural snarls, unnatural howls, and piercing screams united in relentless disharmony. Kendra, Seth, and Goldilocks sat on the bed awaiting dawn. Kendra had to constantly fight images of the woman with the swirling black garments. She could not get the apparition out of her mind. When she had looked into those soulless eyes, even though the lady was outside, Kendra had felt certain there would be no escape. Late in the night, the fur finally began to relent, replaced by more unnerving sounds. Babies began to cry beyond the window again, calling for mama. When that failed to elicit a response, the voices of young children pleaded for help. "Kendra, please hurry, they're coming. Seth, open up, help us. Seth, don't leave us out here." After the cries were ignored for a while, snarls and screams would simulate the demise of the young supplicants. Then a new batch of solicitors began begging for admittance. Perhaps most disconcerting was when Grandpa was inviting them down to breakfast. "We made it, kids. The sun is rising. Come on, Lena cooked hotcakes." "How do we know you're our Grandpa?" Kendra asked, more than a little suspicious. "Because I love you. Hurry, the food's getting cold." "I don't think the sun is up yet," Seth replied. "It's just a little cloudy this morning." "Go away," Kendra said. "Just let me in. I want to kiss you good morning." "Our Grandpa never kisses us, you sicko," Seth yelled. "Get out of our house." The exchange was followed by vicious banging on the door for a solid 5 minutes. The hinges shook, the door held. The night wore on. Kendra leaned against the headboard and Seth dozed at her side. Despite the noise, her eyelids began to feel heavy. Suddenly, she jerked awake. Gray light was seeping through the curtains. Goldilocks wandered the floor, pecking at kernels from her spilled bucket of feed. When the curtains were masking unmistakably sunlight, Kendra nudged Seth. He looked around, blinking, then crept to the window and peeked out. "The sun is officially up," he announced. "We made it." "I'm scared to go downstairs," whispered Kendra. "Everybody's fine," Seth said nonchalantly. "Then why haven't they come to get us?" Seth had no response. Kendra had gone easy on him during the night. The consequences for opening the windows were brutal enough without placing blame and starting arguments, and Seth had really acted remorseful, but now he was reverting to his idiot self. Kendra glared at him. "You realize you might have killed them all." His face fell and he turned away, shoulders shaking with sobs. He buried his face in his hands. "They're probably fine," he squeaked. "Dale had a gun and everything. They know how to handle themselves." Kendra felt bad, seeing that Seth clearly was worried too. She went to him and tried to give him a hug, but he shoved her away. "Leave me alone. Seth, whatever happened isn't your fault." "Of course it's my fault." His nose was getting congested. "I mean, they tricked us. I sort of wanted to open the window too when I saw those wolves charging, in case it wasn't fake. I knew it might be a trick," he sobbed, "but that baby looked so real. I thought they might have kidnapped him to use him as bait. I thought I could save him." "You were trying to do the right thing." She attempted to hug him once more, but he pushed her away. "Don't," he snapped. I didn't mean to blame you," said Kendra. "You were acting like you didn't even care." "Of course I care. You don't think I'm terrified to go down there and find out what I did?" "You didn't do it. They tricked you. I would have opened the window if you hadn't." "If I would have stayed in bed, none of it would have happened," Seth lamented. "Maybe they're fine, right? And they let a monster come in the house and up to our door pretending to be Grandpa? Maybe they had to hide down in the basement or someplace. Seth was no longer crying. He picked up a doll, used her dress to wipe his nose. "I hope so. Just in case something bad did happen, you can't blame yourself. All you did was open a window and those monsters did something bad. If those monsters did something bad, it's their fault. Partly. Grandpa and Lena and Dale all know that living here is risky. I'm sure they're fine, but if they aren't, you mustn't blame yourself. Whatever. I'm serious. I like it better when you're funny. You know what I liked?" Kendra said. "What?" "When you saved Goldilocks." He laughed, snorting a little through his stuffy nostrils. "Did you see how bad that salt burned that guy?" He retrieved the doll and wiped his nose again on the dress. It really was brave. And I'm just glad it worked. It was quick thinking. Seth glanced at the door and then back at Kendra. We should probably go check on the damage, if you say so. That is the end of chapter 10. And now we are on chapter 11, Aftermath.